Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hey, greetings everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to another episode of Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and I really appreciate Benny Keith Foods Mid-South Division giving me the chance to visit with many of the top chefs and restaurateurs across the region on these podcasts. I have been a foodie before that term was even invented, and for the better part of 30 years, I had the privilege of writing dining reviews for a couple of Little Rock newspapers and then magazines, long before the internet gave everyone a chance to be a food critic. But I will say I have learned to love talking about food much more than writing about it. So today our guest is Scott Caradine, owner of Proud Larry's in Oxford, Mississippi. So welcome to Heaping Spoonful, Scott.
Hey, how's it going, Kelly? Thanks for having me.
Glad to do it. So Proud Larry's has been a fixture in Oxford since April of 1993, which is a track record of success and, frankly, of survival that few can claim. So kind of set the scene here. So you're at Ole Miss. You start going out with a cute and nice girl named Lisa, and you guys graduate, and you and two friends and later business partners had a thought, which was, let's have an interesting selection of beer when craft beer was just barely starting to be a thing. Let's be the first place in town to do pizza by the slice, and let's bring in a super diverse lineup of fairly high-profile musical acts. So tell us how all that came to be.
Well, Kelly, I had a good experience at Ole Miss. I came up to Oxford and went to school here, and I spent some summers out in Yellowstone National Park. I had my first kitchen job out there working in a cafeteria that was run by an Airmark food service, very corporate. Had a great experience putting out 1,500 to 2,000 meals a day in a cafeteria setting with some great lessons in kitchen stuff and following direction and following recipes and learning some knife skills and sanitation skills and all some basics. And I really enjoyed it. I came back to Oxford as a business major that was struggling in college and did not enjoy school and did not enjoy accounting classes, and said, let's change our major and do something in this hospitality management program. It was really a home economics degree at the time. And the program was, I guess it wasn't necessarily new to Ole Miss, but it was still a young program. It's come a long way since. And I suddenly enjoyed school. I enjoyed my classes. I became a better student. And while doing that, I also got a job in a local restaurant. So I started working in a restaurant up on the square here that was, man, they were so far ahead of their time. It was a little vegetarian place called the Harvest Cafe, and owned by three very sweet hippies that love to cook great, wholesome food. And were great to work with. And I started washing dishes there, and I met some good people, and I worked with some good people back there, and I kind of worked my way up, and I spent the last probably 2 years of college working there, doing their Sunday brunch on Saturdays and Sundays, and cooking omelets and home fries and that kind of stuff. And I had a great time working there. It was a good experience. I finished college, and I went out to Alaska for a summer and worked in a salmon packing facility. Wow. It was with a bunch of other college students on Kodiak Island. It was a great experience. And I came back to Oxford. I got a job at a new restaurant that had just opened up on the square called the City Grocery. And most people, if they know Oxford and food, they know the City Grocery. And
yeah.
The story behind John Currents. And it was a good experience for me there. I learned a lot about food in a short amount of time, about 7 months. But while there, I worked with a couple of friends, Darby Ricketts and Taylor Bowen. They ended up married and are still married today and live over in the Delta in Greenwood. And Taylor's a fabulous chef, and they run the restaurant together. And Darby and I work together. We all work together at the City Grocery. And on the other side, I had a friend that I spent a great relationship in college with, and we're good friends. He had finished with a business degree and moved back to Atlanta. And he kept calling, going, man, this is terrible. I don't like looking for a job. I don't want a job in the banking world or business world. This isn't good. What about opening a restaurant? What about opening a music joint? And you briefly touched on that about, okay, what does Oxford not have? We thought, what about a pizza by the slice? Something we had seen traveling around the country. It was really prominent out in the West Coast, and up east, obviously, and in New England and New York and whatnot. So the idea was, hey, let's open a pizza joint and a live music place and sell some good beer. And so my partner and good friend Jeff Bransford over there, he and I started talking about it. And as we chatted, Darby, who I was currently working with at the City Grocery, he's a couple of years older than Jeff and I were, kind of got in our ear and said, hey guys, I'm in, I want to do something. I'd love to be a part of that if you want some room. And of course we put our heads together and came up with a game plan, and we started scouting locations in Oxford, and we found this place that was a great little mom and pop bar that was really a college bar called the Nollins Cafe or Cafe Nollins. They were a New Orleans couple. The husband and wife and their two sons ran this place, and they were tired and ready to go back to New Orleans, I think. And they said we convinced them to sell us their business, basically sell us the lease. It's a rented property. And so they sold us the lease, and we the three of us pulled some money together and were able to, turn in our notice over at the City Grocery after I only spent about 7 months there, but I did learn a lot about food. And we got out. Darby and I and Jeff had moved back to Oxford, and the three of us got things ready. We had a good crew of friends that helped along the way, that helped dig in and renovate the building and get things ready to open up. And there you go. My girlfriend at the time, you mentioned, Lisa, helped by doing the payroll back in the day when you hand wrote paychecks and you used a little chart on a sheet of paper to figure out what taxes come out of your check according to what you made, and hand wrote the paychecks and kept daily reports and that kind of stuff. So Lisa was a big part of us getting started from the get-go too. Sure.
That's really cool.
We opened on a shoestring, and we were under. They tell you if you're going to open a restaurant, make sure you've got a pocket full of money because it's a long trudging road to get your head above water. And we learned that real fast. We opened the doors. We took the last bit of money out of the bank to stock the registers with cash and set a till up at the door to take a cover charge, and had a grand opening night. And luckily, the town of Oxford was thrilled to have some good live music and all those things that go into it. And we opened and people enjoyed what they came for. And we had good food out the gate and we worked really hard and there you go. So that's how we got started. Yeah. That's where it all came from.
Oh, that's great.
The name Proud Larry.
You just made that one up, right?
Well, we did.
There's no Larry.
No, there's no Larry. I think the three of us, Jeff and Darby and I, this is, coming in after work, sitting around drinking beers and brainstorming names and coming up with, okay, what are we going to call this place? And obviously there was a long list. There was the Fat Slice and the Isla Capri and the Moontime Bar and Grill. And somewhere or another, somebody came up with Proud Larry's. I'm sure it was a play on Proud Mary, the song, at some point. I was thinking. And, but it was catchy and funny. And our accountant called us one day and said, okay, I need a name for your articles of incorporation so that you can open a bank account and really get this thing off the ground. if you can change names however you want to put on the front and open, but as your business and do business under a different name, but I need a name for your corporation. And so we said, well, let's go with Proud Larry Incorporated. And we did that, and it just stuck from there. So when it came time, we just opened with Proud Larry's, and that's where we went.
Well, yeah, I will tell you that the many articles about your restaurant and how it got started do not give you justice to the fact that you learned your chops in big Aramark facility and also working with John Currents at City Grocery, which again, as I've done about 40 plus of these Heaping Spoonfuls, and I have my list of places I need to come. And John Currents has been a guest on the podcast, and so we'll be coming to Oxford. I'll make Rusty Mathis put me in his big Benny Keith SUV and drive me down there, so we'll come check it out. But again, you had a lot more going on for you than I knew just from reading up about it. So Heaping Spoonful is a food-focused, restaurant-focused podcast. So let's start there. But everybody, please know we're gonna get around to talking about the musical history of Proud Larry's after the break, because I mentioned in the intro I spent decades writing about the Little Rock, Arkansas dining scene, but I wrote a lot more about club shows and concerts than I did about restaurants. So music is in my heart for sure. Let's start with the pizza. So I'm sure you weren't making pizzas at City Grocery. Did you know anything about making pizzas? If not, how steep was the learning curve, and how did you flatten it?
The learning curve was difficult, and we've been open 28 years, and we're still flattening it. I'll be honest, it's really funny. Jeff had gone over to Atlanta and to a big restaurant supply warehouse. It had used equipment and whatnot, and had found this pizza oven. But we got ready to open. We didn't have a pizza oven when we opened, and we opened with the grill in the back, and it's this tiny galley of a kitchen that we have. And we had our little charbroil grill. We knew we were doing hamburgers, and just like we did in our backyard, right, we're hanging out with friends. And so we hand pattied our burgers and seasoned and hand pattied the burger meat and marinated chicken and did this chicken sandwich and burger when we first opened. And we didn't even have a pizza oven. There was a gentleman here that ran Living Blues magazine on campus at Ole Miss named Peter Lee. And Peter he was a friend, and he had some pizza experience, and he came over and said, okay, we're going to make some dough. Let's figure out what dough we like and what dough we don't like. And so Jeff was pretty active on the music side when we started, but he was certainly a fan of eating pizza, and he knew kind of what we were looking for. We all knew what we wanted was just a really good pizza. And so we played with some dough and that kind of thing. And it was probably 3 months after we opened before the pizza ovens arrived. And we had an old Blodgett pizza oven and a Baker's Pride. Typically you match them up, right? They come in a pair. Well, these we bought on a shoestring, again, used. And so we stacked them. We had to use cinder blocks in between the ovens so that they could breathe and ventilate properly, because they didn't match up exactly because they were two different kinds of brands of ovens. But they were the old slate hearth ovens, and with the stone in them. We knew we wanted to cook pizzas old school that way, and that's kind of where we got started. We played with it a little bit, and once we got started in there, we had a create your own slice on the menu. You could go in and build a slice of pizza and put anything you wanted on it, and it was great then. Over the years, we learned to change things and be more efficient. And it really didn't make sense to do that, because there's a lot of waste involved making slices of pizza, at least individual slices of pizza. And there's also some challenges in efficiency and trying to keep up in a busy restaurant. If you've got 10 different slices with 10 different lots of different things going on them, it got pretty cumbersome. But we started with an 18-inch pizza, a 14-inch pizza, and a 10-inch pizza. Over the years, we've gone to a 10-inch and 14-inch only. We still make 18-inch crusts in the morning to do a slice of the day. So we still hold true to serving slices of pizza, but we select a slice each day and, serve them at lunch and do it that way. Otherwise it's whole pizzas, 10 inches and 14 inches. We've upgraded ovens twice over the years. Most recently, about 5 years ago, we bought a pair of Marshall and Sons 360s and or M60s, I guess. But they're beautiful ovens, and they're really nice. They have the great stones that line the top of the oven as well as the bottom, so they're efficient. They cook well. They still bake on that stone hearth, and the pizza's kind of just evolved into what it is. We've changed.
Sure.
We haven't changed a whole lot about it as far as the recipes. We've been making the sauce in-house the last probably 15, 20 years the exact same way. We've tweaked it over the years from different cans of tomatoes that we've used to crushed and paste and different things like that. We've kind of settled into one that we've probably used for the last 8 or 10 years now. Same with cheese. We've used different cheeses over the years, and we've settled into the grande cheese we like a lot, and use a whole milk mozzarella, and pretty much the drill,
Yeah. Well, so a few years into, or just a couple or 3 years into your run at Proud Larry's, I guess your business partners exited and you bought them out and you also got married to Lisa. So you
That's
guys
right.
have been the owners alone for a good long while.
Well, you're right. I had great experiences with business partners, and I'm still good friends with both Jeff and Darby. But they both had other things going on, and were ready to do some different things. Darby and Taylor, it moved over to the Delta, and at the same time, Jeff had moved back to Atlanta to be near his mother and his family, and he went on to do a record company and some media stuff, and
Cool.
Just a different career. And so
Sure.
we're all still friends. Lisa it was a natural fit. She was my partner, and she was helping run the business. So we got married in '96, and she took over as my business partner. She was also willing to co-sign on loans and documents with me at the bank, which
that's
we probably wouldn't be where we are today without her. Lisa went on to later be a wonderful mother of our kids. We have 2 great kids that both work up here now. And she's also a yoga instructor. She's also studying Ayurvedic medicine and old Indian medicine. And it's takes up a lot of her time. She does still attend some manager meetings with us up here, and is really, as far as my business partner, the person who helps me make sense of any real decisions that we have to make here. There's always so many things that go into running a business that aren't just cooking on the line or booking concerts or overseeing staff or whatever that may be. It's a lot of support, and boy, I'm really thankful for her to be a part of this, and we wouldn't be here today without all her help.
Sure. Plus, she knows the business inside and out. She was all neck deep in it for so many years. I'm sure, you come home, you can still say, "Hey, help me work through this situation." And she's like, "Okay, I can do that."
Without a doubt, you're exactly right.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
And she definitely gets it.
So, you have been and forever, I guess, booked the music that you feature at Proud Larry?
Well,
that can be a full-time job itself.
It sure can. We can. For years I worked in the kitchen, and I worked on the line in the kitchen for many years, and probably about 18, 19 years into the business, I was still full-time working the line. And Jeff, my first opening partner here, was he handled booking all the music and did a great job of that. And after he left in '97, I guess, we had A couple of different people did it over time. A friend, Spencer Campbell, and Monica DeVera, who had worked here and spent some time. And then a friend of ours, Matt Hickey, who was managing a band from Oxford called Blue Mountain. And he called and said, hey, I need to move to Oxford to help to work with this band that I'm managing. How about if I help you book Proud Larry's, and I'll give you some time to do that until I'm ready for my next move in this business. And so we became fast friends, and Matt came here and he helped us out and booked music and lived in the apartment upstairs that we rented for an office. And he had an office space and a couch and bathroom that he lived on. Lisa had her office up there. And we did that for a while. Matt kind of helped me along and taught me some of what was going on as he got ready to leave. And he went on to work with an agent and do some on the selling side. But at that point, he left me with it. And that was probably in 98, 99, and probably mid 98 or 99. And so from there on, I've done the music booking, and I still do it today. I enjoy doing it. It's a fun aspect, and I like to try to keep my pulse on it. But it requires a lot of help at this point. I'm 51 years old, and my kids, my wife is a music fan, our staff that have wide taste in music. There's luckily Oxford has a great, vibrant music scene. Fat Possum Records being here is a big plus for Oxford. And the guys there, they have their pulse on music for sure. And they're big helps to me as well, bringing concerts to Oxford and pointing me in directions of things and calling and saying, hey, what about this show? And let's put this together. And Oxford also has a great local music scene, local bands. And,
Sure.
When you talk about music here, and there's so much to it as far as the history that we've put together with some big name artists that were not big names at the time, but went on to be big name artists. But really, it's about the local music and the regional music and Mississippi music and that kind of stuff that's really kept people coming back and really keeps people in tune to the scene here.
Sure. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Scott. We're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful. We'll be back in just a bit with Scott Caradine of Proud Larry's in Oxford, Mississippi.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. Our guest today is Scott Caradine, the owner of Proud Larry's, a legend in Oxford, Mississippi, that has developed a strong reputation regionally and even nationally. And that regional and national attention has come in large part due to the good press you've gotten. Can you talk about some of the publicity that your restaurant has gotten that has flattered you and also made a difference in your business? Are there any particular moments of a certain article or a certain feature that said, wow, that really helped, that was helpful?
I don't know, to be honest with you. That's one that we love getting, every business loves to get mentioned in the media and in a positive note, because it's easy to get mentioned in a negative note too, especially in today's world of social media. But there was a time early, one of the first pieces of recognition, there was an Esquire magazine article that came out that had like top 50 music venues in the country and listed Proud Larry's as one. And that was a big one that I really, it was a big national magazine. Obviously, there's been articles in the New York Times and Southern Living and places like that where they do a weekend in Oxford and we get mentioned along with all the great restaurants and food establishments here. Whether it's, there's just so many of them to mention, and it's always great to be recognized with your colleagues that are also just such great restaurants and great food places. And sometimes it's recognition for the music that we do, and sometimes it's for the food, and any of it is positive, and it's always great to see it. I don't know per se where there's been an effect in our actual business. That's hard. That's so hard to put a number on. Has it helped? Yep. It doesn't hurt by any means. It only helps when you get mentioned on those things.
The one thing I will tell you is that if you ever get featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives, every time that comes back on as a rerun, you get a lot more business, because they came to Little Rock, Arkansas, and the folks are still getting huge business of people who are cruising. Of course, Little Rock's at the confluence of I-30 and I-40, so people are passing through. But anyway, well, listen, you're from Lafayette, Louisiana.
Right.
And I know Oxford's been home for a lot longer period of time by now. And, I consider Lafayette more Cajun than New Orleans. And you got a little bit of Cajun-y on your menu. You got jambalaya, you got Creole catfish. You also have some Italian flair. You got fettuccine, spaghetti and meatballs, and a meatball sub. But is pizza the biggest seller by far? Or what among those things I've mentioned are things that are go-tos for a lot of people?
That's... People often ask, what's your best seller and what are the things that you sell the most of here? And I think over time, I would have to say our burger is our biggest seller, is just the good old Larry burger. And I mentioned it earlier when we talked, is the idea was, we hand patted burgers and seasoned them ourselves very simply, salt and pepper and a little hot sauce in Worcestershire. It was kind of a same way we cooked them at home, hanging out with friends, and 8-ounce healthy, big burger grilled on a charbroil flame grill, and we dress them with Creole Zatarain's Creole mustard, and we use Duke's mayo here.
I love Duke's.
Yeah, the Louisiana side. Yeah, I grew up with a grandmother that cooked Louisiana food. My mother was from New Orleans. As a child, my grandparents on her side and her brothers and sisters all lived in or around the New Orleans area. And growing up in Lafayette, I grew up living on boudin and jambalaya and dirty rice and oysters and shrimp and crabs, and it's just it was something that I really loved. And when we got going, we do red beans and rice, and I love doing a gumbo here and that kind of stuff. And the jambalaya pasta, it's not traditional in the sense of jambalaya with rice and cooked long and slow. But it is similar in the sense that, we use andouille sausage and shrimp and crawfish and peppers and onions and all the stuff that would go in it. And the Creole catfish sandwich as well is got a kind of a Creole side to it. Our fry seasoning is something that we made the first day when we first opened, or before we opened. We made this seasoning up. We kind of jotted it down on paper with a couple of cups of salt and a couple of cups of black pepper and red pepper and white pepper and paprika and garlic powder, all the stuff that went in it. And we still make it to the exact same recipe today. And it's what we season our French fries with. It's certainly got that, it's just a Cajun seasoning, but it's the one that we made here and we've always made. And it's probably the one thing that has never changed at Proud Larry's over the years. That recipe has never been altered. And so there's definitely a Cajun side to it. Obviously, cooking pasta, we've got to do some Italian food. I didn't grow up with really an Italian background. There's a lot of that in New Orleans, and my grandmother certainly cooked a mean red. It was really a red gravy down in New Orleans, but that kind of thing. And so and meatballs, that's something we've always done here. But yeah, that's that's a lot of the food. We sell a lot of salads too.
Yeah.
We sell a lot of salads. Our pizza, we probably sell about 20% of our food sales are pizza.
So it's not as high as some. Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. Not as much as you'd think. And then probably sandwiches are, the burger, the chicken sandwich, the meatball sub, the Philly cheesesteak, all that together is probably 25% of our food, 30% of our food.
Well, one of the taglines I've seen for Proud Larry's is "Come for the food, stay for the music," and it's clearly a balancing act, keeping your dinner guests happy and calm when it's time to crank up the live music. So I guess you've just gotten people that are dining customers more than music customers. You got music customers that aren't dining customers. I guess they've just gotten used to that transition period between the time we're through eating and we're now ready to rock and roll.
That's probably been one of the trickiest aspects of running this business over the years is juggling that fine line of being a restaurant and converting into a live music venue. And we are both. And a guy here in Oxford, Palmer Adams, that actually was a partner with John at City Grocery when I was there in the very early days. He helped John open City Grocery. He ran the front of the house. And then Palmer later was doing some ad sales in Oxford, and he was doing ads for us. And he came up with that tagline in an ad, "Come for the food, stay for the music." And it's just stuck. We've used it forever. So that's a good one. And it does make sense. Lots of people, we've had plenty of time where a band is sound checking and making a lot of racket at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and a family is there trying to eat pizza and French fries and with kids, and their ears are blowing up, and we have to kind of move them outside or tell them we're sorry for the hassle. Or we've kind of juggled and learned that if a band's coming to sound check and they want to do it before the restaurant closes, then they've got to come in at 4 in the afternoon when it's pretty empty in here, or we got to let customers know as they sit down, "Hey, I'm just giving you a heads up. You may run into some noise here in a little bit," but it doesn't stop. And and there's not really any way around it. We're not going to close. Most artists don't mind if people are in here. We run into a band every now and then that wants an empty house to do a sound check, but most of them are pretty flexible and work with us on that. And so it's just one of those things that it's a juggling act. You got to pull the tables and chairs out. A lot of times people are sitting there finishing their food at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and our door guys or management is trying to pull tables and chairs out of the dance floor area in front of the stage so that a band can get started at 9:30 or 10. And if you're talking on a football Friday night when there's lots of people in there, it's a mess, and it's a juggling act, and it's a hassle, and it's a hustle, but you just got to do it. And it's a great conversion. Part of it. All of a sudden the tables are gone and people are filing in and the bar's filling up and rock and roll gets started.
Yeah, no, I love it. I've been to many. There's a couple places in Little Rock that are doing the same juggling act. And you also have to come in around and say, "I hope you enjoyed your meal, but if you want to stay for the show, you're going to buy a couple of tickets."
Well, you're right. We run into that a lot too. People think they've come in and, "Well, I've just spent $50 on pizza and beer. What do you mean I can't stay for the music?" Well, the artists are the ones that are getting paid. And that's exactly how the bands and that's how the bands get paid is the people buying tickets at the door. So most people understand.
Well, there's a little fabulous pizza and beer place in Little Rock called Vino's. It was our first craft brewery, but anyway, they've featured live music. And you know who played there twice? Green Day. Anybody knew who Green Day was? No, they didn't.
Right.
Well, John Mayer has played at Proud Larry's, and I'm sure it was at a time, otherwise you wouldn't have been able to afford him, when not a lot of people knew who he was, although I'm sure they loved it when they saw him. So, and you've had Elvis Costello. I mean, he had to have been well known by the time you had Warren Zevon, which is... I saw Warren Zevon in a smoky bar in Little Rock, probably on the same tour sometime in the mid '90s.
Right.
Mid to late.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We had a friend here that was from Oxford that we had gone to school with here that ran a club over in Birmingham, and he also had a little talent buying agency that booked concerts and promoted shows that was called Southeastern Attraction. His name was Adam Trowbridge. And Adam, and it was the Zydeco was the name of the bar over in Birmingham. Been there, great history of music, and been there forever. And he had a date with Warren Zevon and called my partner Jeff at the time, who was doing our booking, and said, "Hey, you want to do Warren Zevon?" I think, we paid him a couple of $1,000, and it was a fabulous, great show, and one that you'll always remember. Elvis Costello came to Oxford to record a record and at Sweet Tea Studios, and he came and holed up in Oxford for, I don't know, about a month. He and his crew made lots of friends here, and and it was one of these, hey, I think Elvis wants to play a couple of shows and work on these new songs before he goes into the studio, or maybe it was after. Maybe he recorded the songs and then wanted to play them live. But it seems like he wanted to play them live and then work on recording them, maybe. But
that makes sense.
Nonetheless, he worked the show out and played 2 nights. He also played a couple of nights up in Memphis at the High Tone at that same time, and then he did the record and moved on. John Mayer, it was one of those just having a good relationship with an agent and calling and saying, "Hey, I've got a young artist that I need some is passing through. Can he come play for the door? It's just solo acoustic. He's going to be big one day." And we said, "Sure." And John came in a car with his acoustic guitar and loaded in his own gear, and had probably about 80 or 90 kids, girls that knew who he was, that all came down from like St. Louis, Missouri, and people drove from all over that knew who he was, but probably about 100 people. And, lots of things like that. So we've been lucky over the years to have some up and comers.
Well, the same bar where I saw Warren Zevon, I also saw a band that had one song on the radio, and it was Maroon 5 playing in a 200-seat. Now they come and play at our 18,000-seat arena, when there's no COVID. So, but since then, Jason Isbell's my wife's favorite artist of all time, and we're going to see him in Little Rock on August the 4th, and a super big deal. And then the first concert we saw after we thought COVID was over was American Aquarium. They've played. Right. We saw them a couple of weeks back in Little Rock, and I saw George McConnell of Beanlands when I first knew him, Kudzu Kings, and Widespread Panic did 4 Tuesday night shows at your place. He's a big deal. That's just wow for me.
Yeah, George is a great friend over a long period of time. He's also my neighbor, and wow. And George, has had a great track record of playing in front of big crowds with multiple bands. Yeah. And is a classic Mississippi artist from down in Vicksburg. And certainly he's an Oxonian at this point, and has had a great impact on the local music scene over the years, and is still very active in it. And, he's a songwriter and he likes to play. And so after COVID, and really, but pre-COVID, he used to do that. For him, he wants to come and sit up on the stage and play guitar and sing songs and work on new songs and play covers and old songs. And people love to come hear him play his music and sing. And so, that's been a real treat for us to have George come do his residencies.
Right. And I'm looking at your coming up music, which again, by the time people hear this, they've probably already played. But you got Tab Benoit, you got Ward Davis. There are a couple of different and equally stalwart musicians. And what is the capacity? How many folks can you sell a ticket to at Proud Larry's to see a show?
About 250, really. Yeah. There's certainly been times where we've crammed more people in here than we should. But
right.
But at the same time, comfy, snug and tight, but still comfy is about 200, 250. 250.
Yeah. Is that a combo of sitting and standing, I presume? And
it's pretty much, that's pretty much all standing. When there's going to be a crowd like that, we take all the tables and chairs out. We take the bar stools out and just make room for people wherever we can stick them.
Sure. So that sounds cool. So we're recording this episode of Heaping Spoonful in early July of 2021. So we've all been living with COVID-19 for about 16 months. So Tell us how it impacted your business in terms of shutting down, doing curbside pickup, doing delivery, and then reopening. What was kind of your approach during all that?
Well, our approach was at first we shut down.
Sure.
We shut down and really, said, let's take a breather and see what happens here. We knew we closed thinking, okay, this hopefully will be a couple of weeks, as I think most people hoped. And then it kind of went, wait a second, this is going to take a little longer. We had earmarked some money to do some improvements around here, and we just hadn't had the time to do them. And so we said, this is the time we can get the floors refinished, and this is the time we can do a couple of things in the kitchen that we needed to do that we haven't been able to do, and we were fortunate to do that. Like most businesses, we took advantage of the federal help and PPP money, and we were able to pay our staff. Nobody missed a paycheck all the way through, from servers to bartenders to bussers and dishwashers and kitchen people. Everybody got paid, and we were shut down nearly 3 months, 2.5 months.
Right.
And we reopened with the 25% capacity inside. We do have a small patio here with some tables outside. That was advantageous. We did some curbside service and certainly a lot of to-go food. And slowly over time, things got going, and I would think from talking to most people, the restaurant business has been very, very busy the last few months.
Yeah,
and certainly people are thrilled to get out and eat again. But it's been a challenge. I know staffing issues have been big in Oxford.
Sure.
They've been hard. They're probably everywhere, but I know Oxford, and a lot of us are all good friends that run restaurants together in Oxford, and everyone that I talk to has had staffing issues. We certainly supply chain issues. Penny Keith's done a great job of keeping us informed when we don't have things, or being flexible to substitute things and keep us as best we can. And we really haven't had a whole lot of interruption in items in our food. Very minimal as far as much trouble as it's been. Things are expensive these days. And
yeah, they are.
But it's just part of it, and it's going to come back to reality. And I think business will kind of settle back into some normalcy as we see it. But people will be thrilled in Oxford to come back to a full normal football season this fall. I think students will be thrilled to come back to Oxford and go to class on campus. And so, I look for things to be banging the rest of the year.
Well, let's sure hope so. Well, listen, I thank you so much, Scott, for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Keep cranking out that good food and exposing your fans to more and more great live music. I appreciate everybody listening to Heaping Spoonful. We post new episodes the first and third Tuesday of each month, so keep an eye and an ear out for them. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.